Welcome back for episode 8 of Compound Growth. So, today we want to discuss the economic impact of major sporting events for those cities that hold the event.
So, the main reason why this topic came up and why we wanted to dive a little bit deeper is because we live in Pittsburgh. And as many people know, the 2026 NFL draft came to Pittsburgh for the first time this year. And it was a
Yeah.
big story throughout the past weeks, and I'm sure the weeks to come as well. So, like I mentioned, this was the first NFL draft in Pittsburgh, and this was actually the single largest sporting event that has been held in Pittsburgh. While looking at the numbers of the economic impact to the city for this NFL draft, we were pretty surprised at the numbers. So we wanted to
Yeah.
actually dive into what are some of the other largest events that are held throughout the United States, and some popular ones come to mind: the Super Bowl, the MLB All-Star Game, the World Series, etc. But there are some unique ones that we want to touch on as well.
Yep.
First, I want to just jump into those numbers for the NFL draft that we heard throughout previous weeks and then touch on the final number. So the projections were that 500,000 to 700,000 people were going to be in the city for this draft. And we actually beat the expectations because we had 805,000 people over the 3 days of the draft.
That's crazy. Yeah, it was packed. And I don't know about you, I didn't go down, but I know a lot of Yinzers stayed away from downtown. Others, went down just to experience it because who knows when the next time is that's going to come back to the city. But I mean, for all these cities where these events are held, it's a huge opportunity to bring light to the city, bring a lot of different opportunities. So it's, great to have something held here in our hometown.
Yeah, and almost everyone that I know who works in the city, my brother works at PNC Bank downtown, and every employer told their people just work from home this week because it's going to be crazy traffic, and we don't have the capacity to come into work this week.
Yep. Crazy traffic, road closures, increased parking rates was one of the things that we heard a lot of where, it makes more sense for a lot of employees to just stay home, call off that day or those days that they're supposed to work. If you're a bartender or something near the city and you're going to have to pay for parking, you're probably going to pay more for parking than you're going to make on that shift. So we were talking to a few people that actually just called off for those days and didn't even go down to their shifts.
Yeah, and speaking about the economic impact of it, the city of Pittsburgh, so the businesses, the hospitality, the restaurants, etc., the net number to those companies was an increase of $165 million due directly to that draft.
Yeah.
Um, Talking about the public allocation of funds. So the public money, so taxpayer money, was about $19 million that was invested to this. And when you're talking about 165 million of revenue generation, that's an 8x return, better than most public money that's spent on investments.
Yeah. Not a bad investment for the city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Definitely. The only other thing that we want to touch on here, because I think this is important, thinking about the long-term aspect, in terms of businesses moving to the area, there were 9 Fortune-level CEOs that attended the draft. Now, I'm sure they didn't stay for the whole time, but they were in Pittsburgh for the draft, and they were basically scouting it out for corporate relocation. Over the past 5 to 10 years, we saw companies like Tesla move out of California and into Texas. So if Pittsburgh gets some big hitters like that, that could be a big growth factor over the long term.
Yeah. Yeah. Create a lot of jobs, a lot of opportunity for, everybody that lives in the area. Now, this is a great thing, to have this event here in Pittsburgh. But one thing that I've seen recently that was a bit of a surprise, kind of on a negative side, was that a lot of businesses that aren't in that direct foot traffic of downtown saw just completely decreased numbers for those days that the draft was going on, because that's where all the foot traffic was. That's where everybody was going, was downtown for the draft. So a lot of these companies that are in, suburbs outside of Pittsburgh saw really low numbers for those few days that the draft was going on, which was just surprising. So I know they're probably happy that things have wrapped up now and hopefully they're back to normal. So it's something that you don't realize that has an impact on companies that aren't directly in those areas of where these events are being held. So with the draft being in Pittsburgh this year and that being, the hype over the last few months, we wanted to see how does the revenue for the city of Pittsburgh stack up against other US sporting events for this year.
So next up on the list, we have the Masters event in Augusta, Georgia for the PGA Tour, and we saw Rory McIlroy win back-to-back Masters as he did the same last year as well. So with that event, that is an economic impact to Georgia, specifically Augusta, of $100 million.
Yeah. So this is, one of those interesting events that I spoke about earlier where this is held in the same exact place every single year. So that is just exponential growth year after year for the town of Augusta, where they know they can anticipate this revenue coming in every year. And they have it pretty dialed in at this point because how long has this been going on?
It's one of the oldest PGA
Yeah.
events out of all of them. And it also drives property values as well. If you have a house anywhere near that golf course, you're doing pretty well. And you've seen your property appreciate substantially over the years.
Yeah, and that's another thing that is being, factored into these numbers is Airbnbs.
Hmm.
I know just in Pittsburgh with the draft, there was a ton of people that rented out their homes, even if they're not always on Airbnb. Whenever a major event like this comes to the city, the U.S. Open, the drafts, people that have never rented their homes out or don't have a rental property, they're going to rent it out for the weekend and go stay at a hotel because they know they're going to be able to bring in $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 for the weekend for people to come stay. So it's interesting to see that, in our town where this doesn't always happen.
Yeah, it reminds me of in the previous year, the U.S. Open was at Oakmont Country Club, also in Pittsburgh, and we saw tons of people renting their houses out to players and visitors as well because they need a place to stay, and not everyone wants to stay in a hotel. So houses are getting rented out, Airbnbs do really well, and property values go up whenever they know that it's going to be at a consistent
Yeah,
location like
a
the Masters.
reoccurring event.
Yeah.
Yep, every single year. Another thing that's unique about the Masters in Augusta is there was over 2,000 private jets flying in and out of Augusta for the Masters tournament. So the airport there was just extremely busy, busier than the airports where the Super Bowl has been held in some years.
Yeah, the most of the players will take private flights, as well as many of the more famous or wealthy individuals who are attending.
Yep. While on the topic of golf, that leads us into our next event here in the U.S., which is the U.S. Open. So, like Mike said, this was held here in Pittsburgh last year in Oakmont. This year it's in Southampton, New York, June 18th to the 21st. And this is expected to bring in about $130 million for the city.
Yeah, so this is unlike the Masters where that is held in Augusta every year, this one does bounce around. It's been held at Oakmont Country Club here in Pittsburgh several times, but there are many years in between that. So they will come back around to the same city, but this one does bounce around frequently. So next up on our list is the 2026 NFL Draft, and that is the catalyst for this podcast today. So we already mentioned some of those numbers. The projections in terms of economic impact were 120 million to 200 million in revenue generation. Now, based on the numbers that have just came out over the weekend, because it just got wrapped up, we landed at about 165 million. So right in the middle of those, we did outpace the amount of visitors by 100,000 or so. But the economic impact did sit right in between those projections. So did pretty well on all fronts.
Yeah, for sure.
Next on the list, we have the Kentucky Derby, obviously located in Kentucky. And this is a race for horses who are 3 years old and younger. Fun fact, I actually picked the winning horse for last year, which was Sovereignty, although he will not be competing this year because he is now 4 years old.
I didn't know that. That's a new fact for me.
Yep. Anyway, the revenue generation related to the Kentucky Derby for the city is between 400 and 440 million. So that one was pretty surprising to us.
Yeah.
But with these stadiums, they are able to hold a lot of people, and the events are pretty pricey to attend.
Yeah. So the Churchill Downs where this is held, it holds about 60,000 people, which is a pretty large amount. But for the amount of foot traffic that comes to the city, not everybody's attending the event. So that leaves them to wander the city and go spend their money. And, that just brings in more revenue for the city overall.
Yeah, to me, it seems like more of a culture thing where everyone gets
Hmm.
excited to dress up in their Kentucky Derby outfits
Hmm.
and go to fancy dinners
Yeah.
and, kind of just mingle with other people who are interested in the event.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that generates revenue all around the US, all around the world because I don't watch horse racing besides one day a year, and it's the Kentucky Derby. Every year I go to a Kentucky Derby party. So, I mean, there's places that generate revenue all across the globe that there's no way to put a numerical value on that.
Yeah, not to mention the gambling impact. So casinos see a big boost in player activity right around this time. Even if you are not a gambler, many people just throw in a bet for that one day a year and pick a horse that they like.
Yeah. Next on the list, which I think this is the most surprising out of anything, the Indianapolis 500, obviously held in Indianapolis, Indiana, and that's May 24th. This brought in a whopping, or is expected to bring in a whopping 500 to 600 million dollars for the city,
Mhm.
which is just ridiculous whenever you think about it. That I personally don't watch NASCAR, and I don't know many people that do.
And
S-
nowadays, you hear more about the F1 races are
Yeah,
extremely popular. People are traveling,
yeah,
taking private flights to go to many of those races.
yeah. And the venue where this is held, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, is larger than most NFL, pretty much all NFL stadiums, holding three times more than the average stadium at 300,000 people.
Mhm.
So, I mean, again, the amount of foot traffic that that brings each year is just insane to think about, and what that brings to the companies, the businesses all around that stadium.
Yeah. And if you think about how loud it is at one of those stadiums, I would probably have to get out of there and go get some concessions and
Yeah,
go
absolutely.
to a restaurant as well.
And I was surprised by the viewing numbers too. There's 300 million viewers across over 200 countries that tune into the Indianapolis 500. So
Wow.
overall, this was just a surprising statistic coming out of NASCAR.
All right. And now with the final event on the list, this is a unique one for the United States. It has never been here before. Typically, it is in a European or Latin American country, and that is because it is the FIFA World Cup. So, soccer is well known to be the largest involved sport in the world. Almost every country in the world plays soccer. And this year, it is coming to the United States. So it is going to be throughout 11 different cities in the United States, and everyone is gearing up for this, preparing and getting their stadiums ready.
So the top cities that the World Cup is going to be in this year is Dallas, New York and New Jersey, Houston, Atlanta, and Boston. So each of these cities is expected to bring in over $1 billion of revenue. The average being about 1.5 to 2.5 billion per city, and this is jumping around to 11 different cities. So this is just on a whole different tier compared to the other events that we listed off.
It's definitely an outlier.
This is an outlier. It's in its own league, where it's just astounding the amount of money that's being generated from this tournament.
Yeah, and it's a multi-week event. So it is a tournament style event. So you have several layers of games going on, leading all the way up to the final game, which will be held in New York.
Yeah, and what's kind of unique about it while it's being held in the US is previous years they've had to build stadiums where, it's costing these areas a lot of money to actually host these events. where they're using existing NFL stadiums this year. So there's not a whole lot out of pocket, and there's going to be just a ton of money flowing through, with 11 different states being involved, or cities.
Yeah, with the big sports culture in the United States, we do have a lot of the infrastructure already built out for that, and makes us well positioned to handle an event like this.
Yep. So across these cities where the event is being held, we're expecting about 5 to 7 million international tourists coming in to view this event.
Yeah, so that's going to drive a lot of tourism and also creates a need for safety precautions from the United States as well.
Yep.
One thing that's been a big topic in the news over the past couple years is border security. Now we do want these people to come visit. We want them to play a part in the economic impact of these events, but we need to make sure we do it in a safe way, and in a controlled environment.
Yep, absolutely.
So, with that said, there are 8 of the more unique events that we thought, and our takes on those. Obviously, there are many others like the College Football National Championship and the World Series and the NHL Stanley Cup Finals that is occurring right now as well.
Hmm.
But we wanted to touch on some of the more interesting ones and higher grossing events.
Yeah. And hopefully, at the end of the year, we'll probably circle back around to this and see how these events actually stacked up, in relationship to what the estimates were. So we're looking forward to coming back and seeing what those figures actually come out at.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, the world of sports is always changing, and certain events are becoming more popular than others. Like I mentioned, the F1 racing, that just seems to be more and more on the rise. You see movies and TV shows made
Hmm.
of that. So
Got a
maybe
good
one day
movie.
that could be one of the highest grossing.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to wrap things up, kind of listing these out from smallest to largest, in the order that we went. We have the MLB All-Star Game, 50 to 100 million. We have the Masters in Augusta, right around 100 million. The US Open, right around 130 million. We have the NFL Draft here in Pittsburgh that brought in 165 million. Kentucky Derby, about 400 million. Super Bowl around 500 million. Indianapolis 500, 500 to 600 million, and finally the FIFA World Cup, which is expected to bring in a whopping right around 700 million to 2.1 billion. Just ridiculous, those numbers. So,
Quick question, Brody. What is your favorite event, whether it's on this list or not?
I have to go with the NHL playoffs. That's got to be the most electric event in all of sports, if you ask me, even though the Penguins, as it's looking right now, are not looking too hot. But that's just got to be the most electric event that I like to watch personally. What about you?
Yep, I agree with that. The Stanley Cup playoffs are, to me, the best one, regardless of if our team is in it or not. I will be watching.
Yep, for sure.
Let's go, Pens.
All right. Thanks for tuning in for episode 8 of Compound Growth. Looking forward to see you guys next time. Thank you.